Tagdi Agus Falcha. Hi and welcome. It's John O'Sullivan from the Irish Pagan School. And today I was going to do a video describing, what's involved in my relationship with Dagda and what kind of how I define the work. Um, but it would feel a little bit disingenuous to not take a bit of time out to talk about the state of the world this morning. Now, this is going to be tricky. I have thoughts, and again, I am 50% of the Irish Pagan School from a founding position, and I talked about it with Laura as well. And it's okay. I'm getting ahead of myself. So the first thing I need to kind of clarify is that it is 25th of February 2022. We have had the day of all of the twos, the 22nd of the second month in the 2022, which happened to be on a Tuesday, which was very entertaining. And that was only 3 days ago. But what was also going on in the world was one nation threatening another nation. And that threat has come to fruition overnight and into this morning. So I will be kind of content warning here for discussion of war and loss of life. I'm going to be kind of talking about it from a broader perspective. I'm not going to be getting into any news reports or anything like that. And again, because it is about this condition that we as a species force upon ourselves. And it's nothing but destructive. So again, as with all of our groups, all of our spaces, any space hosted by the Irish Pagan School or in partnership with the Irish Pagan School respects people's right to and actively encourages people to look after their own mental health and their own emotional well-being. So if you're not here for this morning, that is totally fine. Whenever you're actually watching this video, absolutely take responsibility for yourself, take self-care as a priority, and stop the video. You don't have to watch it if you don't want to. There's no one expecting you to put yourself through something which could be upsetting. But in the same breath, I would hate to kind of carry on with, oh, hey, it's another video from John, and suddenly someone's blindsided with a potentially traumatic experience or trigger warning content that they were not informed about. We take that very seriously within all of our communities, and it is a focus of compassion towards community that we give those content warnings. And so it doesn't cost me a bit of extra effort. Well, it takes a couple of, takes a moment of thinking ahead about what you're going to say and having the compassionate awareness of how it might impact on other people to then give the content warning in advance. So hopefully that covers the content warning. Because yeah, Russia has gone to war and invaded the Ukraine. Now, in my previous video, I talked about the size of Ireland. You can drive from the east coast of Ireland to the west coast of Ireland in 2.5 hours. We're small, but we're still part of a bigger collective, an agreed upon union of nations, which said that we need to, never get into the state of severe conflict that would cause a world to be at war again. Ireland, though, if you know your history at all, Ireland has always declared its neutrality. Even during World War II, we had declared, and we still stand by our neutrality. It is our right to do so as a nation. Doesn't mean that people didn't volunteer to go fight in other countries' armies. Some people, a lot of Irish soldiers, a lot of Irish people volunteered to join the English army, for example, during World War II. And that's not that long ago. 1930s, 1940s. We're not even 100 years away from one of the most destructive, cataclysmic events that we did to ourselves as a species. because we got caught up on this notion of entitlement, this notion of power, and this notion of might making right. No matter which way you want to justify it, no matter what way you want to bend it into, spin it into, we're providing peacekeeping services, or we're like, they're savages, or like, they're people who are looking for us to kind of take over. It's always just wrong. We're no longer in a state of survival here in the Western world. It's not a case that you need to invade people near you, your neighbors, to survive, or you flee as refugees and invade somewhere else because, there's no way you're going to survive unless you do that. We're not there anymore. But we still have this underlying condition of aggression towards other people. And they're all just people. 10 fingers, 10 toes, 2 legs, 2 arms, a head, a butt. We're all just people. We might speak different languages. We might have a different kind of coloration to our skin based on how much sunlight our ancestors were exposed to. We might have different hair color. We might, have different ways of speaking, might have different cultural or religious practices. But it's the differences that add to the richness of the human species, not something we should be dividing ourselves based on or harming others based on. And so it's never about what people say it's about. It's always about a fundamental baseline of power and entitlement. And it might sound like a really weird nerd thing to say, but I'm going to quote the Emperor, which was known as Senator Palpatine from the, story sagas, the Revenge of the Sith, Return of the Sith, Revenge of the Sith, the third part, where he's talking this kind of supreme evil power in the galaxy taking over. He's talking to one of the other characters, Anakin Skywalker, and he turns around and he says, the thing about people who have power is that they always fear to lose it. And that is the motivator. That can possibly be the motivator. I'm not a political expert. I will say that. I'm an Irish mythology expert. But looking back at the history of my country, looking back at the history of Ireland, and looking back at the history of conflict within my own culture and my own native kind of senses and sources, it's never justified. It's always kind of clarified after the fact. It's always kind of tried to make better, or tried to, talk it around, or like, oh, well, it was this for that. Standing up in defense of yourself is always justified, but, offense being the best form of defense, no. Like there is, what's it, the Shansu Art of War, where it's like, you have to kind of, actually, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to misquote the Art of War, and that would be a horrible, terrible thing to do, because that comes from another culture, not my own culture. But there is this mentality that comes around from that, which is, if someone steps up to you, then you put them down so hard no one will ever step up to you again. And it's that kind of culture of mentality, culture of might makes right, culture of patriarchal power dynamics in many ways, that leads to circumstances like this. And unfortunately, no matter who is wearing the suit or helming the whole circumstance or sitting behind the big desk or whatever, it's always the people of the nation who hurt. It's always just the regular people. It's always like the normal day-to-day living of your life people who actually paid the price, especially in this time of mechanized, modern, industrialized warfare. It's always regular people who pay the price. No longer like, is it a case of, well, we have a battle on the morning, we fight during the day, and everyone returns to their camp in the evening. If you count any of my previous stories, that's how the first battle of Moytura was fought, between the Tuatha De Danann and the Fir Bolg. And that was an exchange of power. the Tuatha Danann fleeing oppression in their own other lands, coming back to their ancient homeland in Ireland, the Firbolg fleeing oppression and pretty much indentured servitude over in Greece, coming back to their ancient homeland. And it's the power structure and the need to flee to survive and kind of take up new land to survive. We're not there anymore. But even then, it was not a war of annihilation. It was an agreed conflict that happened at a particular place that, you know, they fought for a few hours every day and then retired to their own camps every night to count the score and the cost. But it was not, we attack them where they live. It was not, you know, we go after the women and kids. It was the warriors who chose to fight, meeting and going through a period of conflict in a set location. And it was not a battle of annihilation. At the end of it, the Firbolg, like a portion of the Firbolg survived. And the tribe took Connacht, the western province of Ireland, to live in, and the islands out to the west as well. But we learned in our ingenuity how to kill more effectively. It's not a case that you can only kill someone within arm's reach of you or within spear's reach of you anymore. It's now a case that you can kill hundreds of people by pressing a button from miles away. And that scares the shit out of me. That really scares the shit out of me. Because when we get to the point of dehumanizing each other, when we get to the point of othering to such a degree that, we no longer consider other human beings, other people who were born in our world in the same manner that we were born, carried in a womb and brought into the world, who live during this world and who, should have an extensive life of a number of decades in this world before dying of old age, are just having that potential ripped away from them by someone who never even sees them. Now, I'm not saying that we need to go back to having, glorified battles of honor and swords, stand facing each other and whatever. We shouldn't be fucking doing this anyway. Surely, as more mentally capable creatures, we should be able to do better than this. We should be able to communicate more effectively. We should be able to unify. Words are failing me. And it's because I am afraid. I'm also angry. I'm angry at, again, another aggressive nation thinking they can just take other countries. Having studied Irish lore and Irish history and lived through the Troubles in Ireland, even though I lived in a republic, it still impacted upon me. What's happening now is going to generate generations worth of trauma for a whole new nation, whole new country, multiple countries. Now, I'm going to talk about myself again, personal experience here, because I don't want to come across as preaching about anyone else's kind of stuff. But in my direct family, I am, myself and my cousins in my generation are the first ones to not engage in military service, or to not be required to engage in military service. My dad was in the army. He served in the United Nations peacekeeping forces. He was stationed in Lebanon and Cyprus for a good period of time. He did service on the northern border. He was a communications officer. He saw difficult circumstances, and he has been in conflict. My uncles also served. His father served. My granddad My granddad was a fighter during the 1916 Rising. He was a nurse and a medical aide. He was a runner during that period as well. He lied about his age, as what happened, so he could join the Free State Army. So when it came to the War of Independence in Ireland, where again we were moving towards our own right, towards our own nation, the stepping stone towards republic was the Home Rule Agreement, the ability to have parliament in our own country. My granddad supported that. He was from Kerry, which estranged him from the rest of my family down there because of the crossing lines and the belief in the entitlements of political power, and the all or nothing approach, which we want complete country back or nothing. So again, there's a long history of conflict and soldiering in my family. If you want to take it further back, I'm an O'Sullivan. There's an entire kind of very famous, the book is on the thing behind me actually, conflict called the March of the O'Sullivans, where some of the last great families in Ireland before the final eradication of Irish Celtic power structures, or native Irish nobility, essentially. Before that was finally completely eradicated, there was a conflict where things were not going great for it in the country, and the O'Sullivan clan pretty much en masse up and marched to try and get there. So there is we should always be willing to fight in our own defense. But fighting or attacking over cultural differences, ethnic differences, property, power, wealth, we should be better than that. We really should be better than that. So I don't want to carry on rambling about upsetting, kind of hurt stuff, but I did want to take some time out to say that for all of the people who are hurt because of this, for all of the people who are afraid because of this, you're not alone. There are some of you who kind of regularly come here and check out the YouTube to, engage with Laura and myself on our content. And we're grateful for that. There's many of our community who turn up to our Live at 5 gatherings on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays. We, as it started the pandemic, we started kind of meeting 3 times a week for an hour. And we've been doing that for over 2 years now. Well, almost 2 years. Sorry, 17th of March is going to be our 2nd year anniversary. And for many people, it is their kind of global pagan community. They're able to connect with other people and just be around other like-minded people and be reassured that there are other people experiencing similar things to them in their life. And so if you are coming here for this, again, I hope anyone who could have been upset by this look after themselves and left. But if you're still here, just know that you're not alone in your fear. You're not alone in your concern or your worry or your hurt. I am not a person who gives non-consensual blessings. I'm not going to just start dropping love and lights and blessed bees or anything like that at all, because consensual energy work is a big part of how we go about our practices. But I will offer warm blessings from our heart to yours if you are open to accepting it. Difficult times always come. But the only way to carry on is to go through. The only way to manage is to go forward. So keep going forward. Look after today. And when today turns into tomorrow, well, tomorrow doesn't exist because it becomes another today. And no matter what actually happens, the sun will always come up. So keep on going forward. Look after for yourself. and then look after those you can look after near you. And maybe compassion will actually win us out and we'll muddle through. Not the most cheery of conversations, but again, fuck's sake, there are people dying. No, there aren't people dying. There are people being murdered because of someone else's power plays. Surely we should be better than that. Look after yourself and look after those you can. And until next time, Slán. Goodbye.